الله أكبر.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
Hostilities have broken out between Israel and Palestine, and the tensions that had been gathering steam over the course of the last several weeks and months.
The siren has gone off. I don't know if you can hear in the background what's going on. I'm going into the shelter now. So it's a very, very serious situation.
At least 23 Pakistani soldiers were killed when a suicide bomb squad entered in a bomb-laden truck in the Pakhtunkhwa province. This has now raised serious security concerns in Pakistan that is scheduled to hold elections in February next year. How can Pakistan fix its lapses in security, which have been happening in greater frequency? Hello there, you are watching Inside South Asia with me, Dasuni Athauda, and this is what we have in store for you this week. India's top court has upheld the special status of Jammu and Kashmir. This means that India's Supreme Court has now done away with the contentious Article 370, which prevented Kashmir entering into India's mainstream. This is also coming where, for decades on end, Pakistan and China have been expressing their concern on the Kashmir issue, which has further stifled the anti-India perspective. Here's the story.
A historic verdict from a 5-judge constitution bench of the Indian Supreme Court. A turning point for a nearly 8-decade-old conundrum around Kashmir's actual identity vis-à-vis India. The highlights of the order. 1. That Jammu and Kashmir does not hold internal sovereignty after Maharaja Hari Singh signed the Instrument of Accession to India in 1947. 2. That Article 370 was historically a transitory and temporary provision, and since the Constituent Assembly that espoused it no longer exists, the special condition for which it was introduced is also deemed to not exist. 3. The President's order of August 2019 abrogating Article 370 and imposing President's rule was not challenged and was not malified. 4. Parliament has the authority to carve out a union territory from a state, and all provisions of the Constitution of India can be applied to Jammu and Kashmir. Assembly elections are to be held in the state by September 2024. And 5. A concurring opinion from Justice Kaul for establishment of a Truth and Reconciliation Panel.
The state of Jammu and Kashmir does not have internal sovereignty, which is distinguishable from the powers and privileges enjoyed by other states in the country. Article 370 was a feature of asymmetric federalism and not sovereignty.
The historic Supreme Court judgment is a massive precedent, paving the way to resolving complex political and legal issues within the parameters of the Indian Constitution. Some Kashmiri political groups as well as citizens have voiced unhappiness at the legal stamp on removing the special status, though integration into India is welcomed. But for the Pak-China alliance, Kashmir as integrated with India comes as a massive setback to their efforts to keep the fire burning.
Pakistan categorically rejects the judgment announced by the Supreme Court of India. Jammu and Kashmir is an internationally recognized dispute which remains on the agenda of the United Nations Security Council for over 7 decades.
Looking back into history, creation of Article 370 and the special status row. Undecided on whether to go to Pakistan or India after partition of the country, then ruler of Kashmir Maharaja Hari Singh had signed a treaty of accession to India after Pakistani invaders threatened his kingdom in 1947. Article 370 was introduced into the Constitution of India, giving Kashmir autonomy and special status outside issues of defence, foreign affairs and communications. A separate constituent assembly for Jammu and Kashmir cut a deal with New Delhi, assuring the province its own constitution and internal sovereignty. All orders on Kashmir from the Indian president too were subject to approval. Fast forward to the 2000s. In 2017, 6 months after the Bharatiya Janata Party withdrew support of the Mehbooba Mufti-led government, governor's rule in Jammu and Kashmir was turned into president's rule. All powers on changes to Article 370 were handed over to the Indian Parliament.
माननीय गृह मंत्री जी द्वारा प्रस्तुत किया गया सामाजिक संकल्प स्वीकृत किया जाए जो सदस्य इसके पक्ष में हाँ गए.
And famously, on the 6th of August 2019, Article 370 was scrapped via a parliamentary legislation.
हाँ 351, 351, 351, ना 72, 72 निर्णय हाँ वालों के पक्ष में हुआ. सामाजिक संकल्प स्वीकृत हुआ.
The state was bifurcated into Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh, both centre-administered territories. Legal challenges had erupted. The latest Supreme Court ruling sets them all aside. The big takeaway, Jammu and Kashmir stands fully integrated with the Indian Union. The last word legally has been said. India's top court has spelt it out. But will Kashmir's political parties allow the autonomy issue to be set completely at rest?
52 years ago, on the 16th of December, Pakistan lost half of its country, and Pakistan was brought to its knees while Bangladesh was liberated. We take a look at the Indian military's golden chapter, which changed the face of how South Asia is seen. Here's the story.
A red letter day in the history of India, when Indian forces brought the Pakistani army to its knees. Pakistan's armed forces laid down arms at a surrender ceremony in Dhaka before the joint command of the Indian Armed Forces and Mukti Bahini, Bangladesh's guerrilla resistance forces. Who can forget this iconic photograph? You can see the chief of the Pakistani forces, General Amir Abdullah Khan Niazi, signing the agreement with Lieutenant General Jagjit Singh Arora, the General Officer Commanding-in-Chief of the Eastern Command during the Indo-Pak War of 1971. The agreement led to the entity called East Pakistan coming to an end and the birth of a new nation, Bangladesh.
Now as the Pakistani armed forces have surrendered in Bangladesh and Bangladesh is free, it is pointless in our view to continue the present conflict.
Pakistan had lost its entire eastern arm, one of India's greatest military triumphs, and needless to say, a crushing defeat for Pakistan. Pakistan's 93,000 soldiers surrendered, the largest military surrender after the Second World War. It was also the first time when all three divisions, the Indian Army, the Indian Air Force and the Indian Navy, fought together. In fact, it was the first time since India's independence that the Indian Navy was engaged in an offensive role on such a large scale. The seeds of this war were sown 9 months back. The Bangladesh Liberation War began after the Pakistani military junta based in West Pakistan, led by their president Yahya Khan, launched Operation Searchlight against the people of East Pakistan on the night of March 25th, 1971. In the early hours, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, a Bangladeshi politician and statesman, declared independence from Pakistan. But what prompted Rahman to make this declaration? In 1970, his party, the Awami League, had secured an absolute majority in the Pakistani general elections, the country's first, winning more seats than all parties in West Pakistan, including Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's Pakistan People's Party. The Pakistan military annulled the results of the 1970 elections and arrested Rahman, who was the Prime Minister designate. His declaration coincided with a ruthless show of strength by the Pakistani military. It was a systematic elimination of nationalist Bengali civilians. Tanks rolled on the streets of Dhaka. 200,000 to 300,000 Bengali people were killed, says a report. 200,000 to 400,000 Bengali women were raped. It was a genocide. Over the next few months, war clouds deepened over the Indian subcontinent. The war began on the 3rd of December 1971 when the Pakistan Air Force launched Operation Genghis Khan, a preemptive strike on 11 Indian air stations. It paved the way for India formally signalling war.
पाकिस्तानी हवाई जहाज़ों ने हमारे हवाई अड्डों पर बमबाजी की। मुझे जरा भी संदेह नहीं है कि विजयी भारत की जनता की, भारत की बहादुर सेना की होगी।
Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw, widely known as Sam Bahadur, is seen as the key architect of the 1971 win.
फौज का काम है लड़ने का, कमांडर का काम है फौज को तैयार रखने का और प्लान देने का। मैंने उनको प्लान दिया था और लड़ाई के पहले लद्दाख से लेके पूरा बॉर्डर तक मैं जाकर सब जवानों को मिलता था। 3,000 जवान, 4,000 जवान, 5,000, और उनके साथ पहले बात करता था बिल्कुल सफाई के बाद कि मैंने आपको ट्रेनिंग दी है, मैंने हथियार दिया है, मैंने प्लान बनाया है, एक चीज़ नहीं दी, मेरा दिल। अब मैं अगली दफ़ा मिलूँगा आपको तो पाकिस्तान के अंदर मिलूँगा। उनकी मोराल बहुत हाई थी।
The war itself, quick and decisive, lasted only 13 days. The Indian Air Force conducted nearly 6,000 sorties on the eastern and western fronts. Air power was seen as a key contributor to the historic victory. Military, humanitarian and diplomatic support from India during Bangladesh's liberation war played an important role in Bangladesh's independence. Post the war, India was the first country to recognize Bangladesh. 10 million men, women and children from then East Pakistan took shelter in the Indian states of West Bengal, Tripura, Assam and Meghalaya. The war changed the geopolitical landscape of the South Asia region forever. Bangladesh emerged as the 7th most populous country in the world. Pakistan faced an enormous economic crisis after the 1971 war. Poverty rose to 55% in 1971-72. In decades to come too, the state of affairs remained dire and worrisome. India, on the other hand, emerged as a strong force after the 1971 war. 52 years on, South Asia's power positions stay defined this way.
From the past to the present times, recent satellite footage have shown the alarming infrastructure expansion in Bhutanese land by China. This has come at a time even before the agreements reached by both countries. Where exactly has China encroached, and how is this an alarming issue for India? Here's the full report.
In signs that should concern India, a latest report by Chatham House shows China's growing footprint and its quote-unquote unsanctioned settlement construction near the contested border with Bhutan. Satellite imagery shows its vast expansionist moves, which comes in the backdrop of Beijing negotiating a border agreement with the Himalayan nation. This image was captured on the 1st of December. It claims to show new outposts in Bhutan's remote Jakurlung Valley, an area that is part of the Beul-Khenpajong region. China has constructed settlements and road networks here. They are apparently part of the new villages which China is building in an attempt to grab disputed territory from Bhutan. The report further says that China is engaged in construction activity of at least 129 buildings in the region. These buildings appear to be residential quarters. In another settlement, China is constructing at least 62 buildings as well. China has also reportedly deployed PLA troops in or near the settlement in these areas. But what's ironic is that these border settlements have sprung up as China pushes Bhutan to establish diplomatic ties with it. The two sides have held 25 rounds of border talks. During these talks, both sides have agreed to conclude negotiations at the earliest. China's construction near the Bhutan border is worrisome to India. The two sides were involved in a tense 2-month-long standoff in Doklam when Indian troops physically prevented the extension of an illegal Chinese road in the area. Bhutan and China have been engaged in boundary talks since 1984 over Jakurlung and Pasamlung in North Bhutan and Doklam in West Bhutan. But the scale of the latest activity by China emphasizes that construction of these outposts is not a one-off, but involves a thought-out plan for land grab, keeping in line with China's territorial ambitions.
If you thought climate change was all about weather havoc and melting ice, it is not the case. Climate experts have now attributed Bangladesh's rising number of deaths of dengue, which now amount to more than 1,200, to ever-changing climate crises across the world. This has now taken a toll on Bangladesh's creaking public healthcare sector. Here's the story.
Abu Hassan is in mourning. His 6.5-year-old son died in July after contracting dengue, the mosquito-transmitted disease that has ravaged Bangladesh this year. So sudden it was, and so helpless he says he felt as darkness closed in.
The night time was very critical and I didn't get any support from the doctors. I went to every department begging for help in every way possible, aside from falling down to their feet. It is outrageous that no doctor was present at the Pediatric Intensive Care Unit, which provides critical care in a prestigious institution like Dhaka Medical College and Hospital. For 4 hours, my son didn't get any treatment here.
As of the 11th of December, more than 1,500 people, including 156 children, from newborns up to those aged 15, have died of dengue in Bangladesh this year. Over 300,000 cases have been registered, as per the government's Directorate General of Health Services. The previous highest, incidentally, was 281 deaths in 2022. The scale of this year's dengue calamity is visible here in hospitals stretched to the limit. And this even after public hospitals have added hundreds of beds. The system bursts at the seams with the patient influx. It's turned into the biggest health emergency Bangladesh has seen in decades. Doctors say there are many patients coming in with repeat cases, people who've tested positive for dengue for the second, third, or even fourth time. Experts have linked rising dengue numbers to rains persisting this year well beyond the monsoons, another symptom of shifting climate patterns. Exposing an unprepared and inefficient system unable to manage public health and sanitation.
There is a linkage between the climatic factor, especially temperature, humidity, rainfall. These are the 3 principal meteorological factors who triggered the Aedes mosquito densities as well as the virus growth and development. So dengue epidemic at that moment in 129 countries all over the world, and most of the countries is the tropical and subtropical countries, which countries vulnerable for climate change. And in this country, temperature, rainfall and humidity is suitable for the growth and development of Aedes mosquitoes as well as the dengue virus.
Which means the need to guard against longer transmission seasons for disease-carrying vectors. Waterlogging and humidity create just the vicious conditions the Aedes mosquito needs. Authorities have deployed emergency teams to coordinate anti-mosquito drives. Creating awareness on breeding possibilities of Aedes mosquitoes, which thrive in the region, is central to the plan. In the bigger picture, the climate health link came up in a big way and for the first time at the COP28 summit in the UAE, with a stress that much more needs to be done across the tropics and affected regions.
We already have a full package of interventions, of technical support that is available to countries, but what they really are lacking now is capacity in terms of technical capacity and access to those tools, but also concrete access to the financial resources that will allow to do the investments that they need at country level.
The World Health Organization has warned that diseases like dengue, Zika, chikungunya and yellow fever caused by the mosquito-borne viruses are spreading faster and further than ever before. Bangladesh is in the quicksand this time, now playing down the threat of others falling in next.
And that's all we have on our show this week. Join us again next week for all the action from the region. For the WION team, I'm Dasuni Athauda, signing off.
We are one, you and I.